Welcome to the Intercourse Show. I'm your host, Mr. B. Today we have a very exciting show for you. We are talking about Macron's latest comments on Donald Trump's war with Iran. He is proposing a third approach where I guess the middle powers join forces to combat the superpowers like America and China. So let's go ahead and jump in and see what he had to say about this approach.
The vassals of two hegemonic power. None of this hegemonic power, I would say. And we don't want to depend on the dominance, let's say, on China, or we don't want to be too much exposed to the unpredictability of the US. Having such an agenda shared by Korea, France, and bringing with us the other Europeans, Canada, Japan, India, Brazil, Australia, you start having a sort of third way. The global order was based on the post-World War II era, and by the way, after the war that your country had to deliver in order to preserve its independence and sovereignty. But during decades, we had a so-called stability based on this international order and the few certainties we had. It's up and down now. The problem we have is the day the main countries with the highest responsibility start to jeopardize themselves the international order. What we have to do is to stick to the principles. We signed a charter building the United Nations. And the day you start creating yourself double standard, what is your credibility to avoid war? The day you say, I don't like your regime, I don't like your organization, I consider you are threatening your neighbor, so I will intervene and bomb you. You open a Pandora box. Because nobody, I mean, why shouldn't the other do the same? We were used to a global order based on some certainties, some stability, and I would say a garant in last resort. Let's phrase it like that. And everything is changing. Our societies are largely destabilized by some technological and anthropological changes. Probably we will revert on that. We were hurt by a pandemic. We have a big destabilization of global trade, overcapacities on one side, tariffs on the other side, and we are trapped in the middle. And there is a doubt on the predictability of a lot of big powers in this world and how this international order can function. And my conviction is that in this very moment, democracies like South Korea and France, our republics, have a lot of things to do together. And based on this partnership, the democracies of your region, the European ones, Canada, Brazil, India, have a common agenda. And let's try to simplify the situation. We do believe in democracy, rule of law. We do believe in the international order based on the Charter of the United Nations. We believe in science and innovation, and this is part of our common agenda. And we do believe in climate change. I mean, we don't consider that climate change is a crazy idea. Based on science, it does exist and has to be fixed. We believe in trade and free and open trade. And we believe in the capacity of our diplomacy to fix instabilities. I think our objective is not to be the vassals of two hegemonic power. None of this hegemonic power, I would say. And we don't want to depend on the dominance, let's say, on China, or we don't want to be too much exposed to the unpredictability of the US. Having such an agenda shared by Korea, France, and bringing with us the other Europeans, Canada, Japan, India, Brazil, Australia, you start having a sort of third way. Those who don't want to be dependent on China or aligned by definition with the US. But this coalition of able and willing countries, believing in the few principles I mentioned a few minutes ago, and ready to work hard together in order to deliver on the basis of this agenda. This is exactly, for me, the agenda of the bilateral relation, but the new era we should open. And obviously, this is the challenge of your generation. And the former generations, and mine is probably at the articulation between the two. But during decades, we had certainties, and the global order was based on the post-World War II era, and by the way, after the war that your country had to deliver in order to preserve its independence and sovereignty. But during decades, we had a so-called stability based on this international order and the few certainties we had. It's up and down now. We should not just be passive in this new disorder. We have to build a new order. And this one should be based on the cooperation between these able and willing countries, those who do believe in cooperation or coalition of the independence, I would say. And we want to be independent. And this is a challenge of your generation. I think the situation where we are is quite challenging, to be honest, because the US is a great country, and they paid a very high tribute for your country and peace in your country, and they pay a very high tribute for peace in Europe. And the D-Day in France is not to be forgotten, and they played a very important role to build this international order I mentioned after the Second World War. And they are the guarant in last resort of this international order in a certain way. The problem we have is the day the main countries with the highest responsibility start to jeopardize themselves the international order. And I think our responsibility, it's true for the G7, and even more broadly, I speak. Some big countries are not part of the G7, which is based on democratic values. So China is not part of the G7, but they have a very high responsibility in the international order. What we have to do is to stick to the principles. We signed a charter building the United Nations. And the day you start creating yourself double standard, what is your credibility to avoid war? The day you say, I don't like your regime, I don't like your organization, I consider you are threatening your neighbor, so I will intervene and bomb you. You open a Pandora box. Because nobody, why shouldn't the other do the same? So this is why I really think that being compliant with international law does make sense for everybody. And this is why, if we go to Iran, we say, we do believe in international order and with the importance of negotiation. Iran is a very bad regime. No discussion about that. I disagree with them on a lot of topics. But I don't believe that we will fix the situation just by bombings or by military operations. Look at what happened with this type of operation in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya. We never delivered. Never. Even after 20 years. So you have to respect the sovereignty of people. If people want to change a regime, they want to react, step up, they can do so.
Okay, that was Emmanuel Macron giving his take on, I guess Trump's decision to attack Iran on the basis that they pose a threat to Israel, and he said an imminent threat to the U.S. Now, a lot of people in the country don't buy that storyline. They feel as if the U.S. is in the wrong because, in a way, they are bullying a country who did not actually take any real hostile action towards them that was direct enough for the countries around them to deem them responsible of being an imminent threat. That being said, I think what you're seeing here is a loss of credibility that the US is having as the controlling power in the United Nations. We've assembled a group of countries to commit to this body, the UN, and their job is to assess the threats and to collectively address it. And when you have certain countries go rogue and they take their own actions against countries without the consent or the approval of that body, obviously you alienate the countries in the body and you delegitimize that body as a whole. So I think what's happening here is France is starting to see the two major powers rise, China being a major influencer and America being a major influencer. And they're seeing that they don't really have a voice. So I think their point of view is to create a system where those mid-tier countries can actually weigh in on what's happening. So that being said, you know, it's to be determined what happens next, but we are seeing a power vacuum where France is seems to rally a group of countries to subscribe to a different power source outside of the top two choices, which would be China or America. They see themselves as pawns in those two choices, and they want to create their own. This is just a matter of a power vacuum that I think Macron is trying to get the best of at this point. So that's my take. What say you? Weigh in on this topic. Do you believe Macron is kind of undermining Trump? Is this going to help the relationship between the United States and NATO? The fact that it's now you have leaders speaking up against one of their major contributing countries, the U.S. Does this further create a rift in those countries and in those relationships? Most likely. But what say you? If you're not already a subscribed member of the show, like and subscribe. Stay connected to the show. Weigh in. Let me know what you think. And let your voice be heard. All right. That's it for me. Signing out in this segment.